Telescope, telescope. My vision, television, telling lies to my vision. Crazy thing called intuition. Never afraid to jump the rope, never freeze, don't choke. Emotions can be manipulated, so don't be emotional. Take the lesson and hope to grow, speed up the flow. Ramadan fasting, my energy everlasting. My gun pop is blasting, your whole bop she smashing. No wedding, we crashing. I pull up in the Porsche, I'm flashing. Welcome back to All That Jazz podcast. As you guys know, I have been MIA for a little while, and I have relocated to Miami Beach. And for the first time in my new recording area, I have two special guests, Javi and Dayron, that are joining me today.
Hi, I'm Javi.
Hey guys, I'm Dayron, and we are actually the hosts of Single in Miami podcast.
So, Single in Miami podcast, let's just go right into that. Let's talk a little bit about what you guys' podcast is about and what made you guys get started with that.
So it was your idea, right?
Yeah, so I was actually in New York City having a drink with a friend, and we're talking about all these podcasts about relationships that speak on relationships. There was one on New York City, one I think on the LA coast as well. And then I'm like, are there any from Miami? So I started to dwell on that idea as I'm drinking there, and I'm like, oh my God, there's none, and there was a market for it here.
Right.
So I texted all of them immediately. I'm like, hey, I have this idea. What do you guys think? And
There's definitely an audience for it, and somehow I get roped into it.
You just get dragged along.
Yeah, I'm his best friend. I'm there with him through thick and thin.
How long have you guys known each other?
Since high school.
over a decade.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about how long you guys have been in Miami.
I've lived here most of my life, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
And what about you?
I got here when I was 7, turning 8, and I'm 31 now. I can't do math.
So you guys really have grown up here. So
Yeah.
you really have experience being single in Miami.
Yeah, more often than not.
So let's just jump right into it. How is the single life in Miami Beach or in Miami in general?
It's great. It's great. You could party every night if you want to. You know?
Really? Is that like what it seems like for tourists, or is it really like that when you live here?
Okay, for tourists, definitely.
Yeah.
I think they come here for that reason exactly. They come
Right.
here to party, to mingle.
Right.
You know, nothing too serious. And that's great for them. For someone here living like we do, I don't know.
It kind of hinders the environment for us.
Do you mean finding a quality person to actually?
Because everyone here seems to have the belief that this is party central, and it tends to be. But at the same time, everyone is just living with that mentality now, and it's relatively hard to find somebody to stay with that does not want to just constantly be out partying.
Yeah.
So being single in Miami Beach, in Miami, where do you guys find the women?
That's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
We've actually spoken about this ourselves. And it all came down to what are your interests? But then we were listing our interests, and we're like, where the hell do we go for that?
Okay, let's hear some of those interests. Don't leave us hanging.
So
She has to be
No, I mean, there's really not a checklist. It's just I
Okay.
find it's easier to meet somebody when you have some kind of common ground. So, for example, I'm really big on reading because I do teach literature, right? I really like video games. For the most part, I game every so often. I'm just an overall kind of nerdy guy.
Okay.
I mean, I have tattoos. I cover my body in tattoos of Final Fantasy from the franchise, and I do love tattoos as well on a woman. But where do you go to meet that kind of people?
Well, so you've been to tattoo conventions, and you've actually been on stage to be what was it rated?
Yeah,
it's like competitions.
So my tattoo artist had asked me if I could do him the favor of enter this competition to present the pieces, and I did. And while I did meet some cool people there, nothing really came out of it.
See, that's like the perfect place for you to meet people. Like, if you weren't so introverted, maybe you can get out there. Um,
So,
Go ahead.
is one person introverted and one person extroverted in this friendship, or are you guys both
I think we're both pretty
Introverted?
introverted. Yeah.
eh,
really? Because you wouldn't think like an introverted person would start a podcast.
that's right.
I think just the idea that we were able to get together and bring something to life, and just it also gives an excuse to hang out and drink together.
Okay.
Which really facilitated the idea.
So, do you guys, your experience in being single, do you guys go to clubs? And like, are you guys club goers?
You wanna?
We've gone
Book
on
clubs.
occasions, but like I said, we live here. We barely go to the beach anymore, just because I don't know. We
So
just
where
get
do you meet the
tired of
women
it.
at? Tattoo conventions? You said you didn't meet anyone. So where do you meet all the women that are here in Miami?
So
Here,
you wanna go? Okay.
actually, I have something to say because what I've noticed, this city goes by fast. People come and go into your life, and if something doesn't hook you onto them, like that's it, you might just lose them entirely. What I've noticed from the people that submitted their stories to our podcast is
Okay.
a lot of people here in Miami, the place where it's party central and you get to meet a lot of different people. They meet their relationships through dating apps.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I've noticed.
I know, like that's this new thing that everyone does is like the dating app, and I've never had that experience. And if I was single, I would never do that because I just think that's so not an organic way of meeting
Yeah.
someone.
That was the same thing that we came.
We've touched on it. It's
Yeah.
not natural. Like,
It's weird, like swipe left, swipe right.
And
But-
you're looking at people only at surface value. You're not seeing who they really are.
Right.
And actually, you're just looking at the physicality traits that they carry. Because let's face it, no one's reading the profiles either. It doesn't matter how much you put on it.
Yeah, I mean and even then when you're getting like a profile picture, you're getting like probably a filter. You're getting the absolute best picture. Like they could even edit at this point their bodies, everything. So you really don't know who you're even meeting.
yeah, but things go by so fast that I can understand. It's like time management. You're going through so much just to filter out, what's good, what's bad. I personally tried the dating apps at some point myself. I didn't like it.
What was your experience on the dating
So
app?
I did meet a couple.
Why did he immediately did a face like
Because I
Yeah,
also
I've heard about it. Like-
we both tried the same dating app
Yeah.
when we were like in our early 20s, mid 20s. I don't know when they came out. Yeah, go.
I did actually get to meet, girls.
How many? Or you don't
a
have to
handful,
disclose.
a handful.
Oh, okay.
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 Not too many because I deleted it soon after that.
Okay.
So the problem with that was they were very interesting. We started off a conversation. The hardest part is to start off that conversation,
Right.
make it feel natural.
Right.
Somehow I got to be able to talk to these girls because it's always like the male, the initiator.
That's so true too.
So I actually got to be able to speak to them, and we decided to meet up. And when I would get to a certain girl's house, for example, she's not what she appeared to be.
As far as like physically or mentally or in which ways?
Physically.
Catfished.
Wait, so like, was it similar to the picture that you were provided with on the app?
Similar,
Maybe like
a
10
couple
years ago. 10
yeah.
years ago.
It's a decade ago.
Maybe a couple years ago. There was one
Wow.
that actually is still a very good friend of mine where the same thing happened, but also like mentally different from the person I was speaking to at that time. And that was that day I was like, hell, I'm here to have a good time. Let's just enjoy our day. And actually some like a friendship came up after that. It wasn't a physical relationship. It was just
Like friendship
I
at
thought
that
she
point.
was cool. She was like quirky and weird, but I didn't want to proceed, to the next step. I just wanted to keep it as a
Okay.
friendship.
Okay. So what about you, Dayron? You didn't try the apps really so much. Like, what is your way that you run into women? Like, since you've been like your experience being single, like how do you run into women?
So I've done both. I did do the dating app, and I did speak to a handful of women, but only dated one, and we did last like a little over a year. But it's I think we can all agree that maybe it's our generation, or at least us. It just feels so unnatural to me, and I feel like I'm putting on this persona through the app to kind of draw attention.
Right.
And I don't like that because
Right.
I feel like I'm being
yeah,
authentic.
I totally get that.
So meeting people in general, I mean, where do we meet people if it's not just out and about? Really, it just comes. It's all situational, at least in my experience.
Do you feel that, because I know like when I was growing up, guys always tried to talk to me like in person, right? And
Yeah.
you know, I feel like almost like men were okay with approaching and getting rejection. Do you feel that now that men are less likely or less comfortable or confident to approach women like in person because maybe the way women respond now? Because I think, you know, the apps and social media and things like that have made it to where people are more comfortable with maybe getting shot down in your DMs versus like walking up to you with your friends and being embarrassed. But I think like growing up like that somehow built character for a man, like walking up to the girl and getting turned down, telling the guy like, oh man, you know, and doing it again and again and again and again. Do you feel that because of the way that society has changed, you feel less comfortable like approaching women in person, or do you feel comfortable?
Actually, me personally, I like doing because I feel like I am more myself in person, and you get to see my mannerisms, and I speak a lot with my hands as I'm doing on camera.
I do too. Oh, wait, you know what? Can I ask you guys what your signs are?
Signs?
Leo.
Oh, horoscopes.
You're Leo, and what
Aries.
are you? Aries.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's like the perfect best friendship. So
our
that
homes.
makes sense. Both fire element. Okay. So you said you do like
So
going up
in,
to them.
In person, it's really all situational. For example, in school, when I was in undergrad, in grad school, it's so much easier to talk to people. And since I teach for a daily, I feel like it's just ingrained in me to socialize now, and to just to verbalize a little better.
Give an example of a place that you were at where you were single and you walked up to someone and approached them. Like, how does that work?
Perfect.
Where were you and what happened?
So I'm gonna give the audience some tips. First of all, get a dog.
Oh, because they're gonna like, oh my god, that dog is
Yes.
so cute. Can I pet him?
Get a dog.
Ah.
So this happened. I'm not gonna say how many times because I don't know who's gonna watch it. So I'm walking my dog. At the time, I only had one, and I have this beautiful husky who that I rescued with blue eyes. And I'm walking him around the neighborhood, and I'm there's other people walking their dogs, and I'm like, oh hi, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and I make conversation just in passing. But if they're cute, that's when you throw your shot.
So what do you do? How do you throw it?
It's easy. It's actually easy if they have another dog, because you're like, oh, your dog is so cute, and and you just enter. That's a pathway. And also, people are always like, oh wow, your tattoos are really bright, and it's just like we begin, just as long as we're conversing, it just opens the door to, hey, you're kind of cool. You want to go out and get a drink sometime, or you want to go and get a coffee, and just to explore that avenue.
Oh, that's really sweet.
So get a dog.
Right. No, I've seen that in actual person. I've actually seen that happen with women. Like they're like, oh, over the animals. I'm not that type of person when it comes to animals though. So I would never do that. But most women, I'd say about like 80% would. So let's go back to why do you going to being single in Miami. Why do you think that Miami Beach? Can I just say Miami Beach? Because since I'm in Miami Beach, I just want to keep saying Miami Beach.
Yeah.
But I know so. Okay, let's jump onto that really quick. Do you think it's like a big difference between? Because I'm in Miami Beach most of the time. Is there a difference in like the women in like single life in Miami and in Miami Beach? Is it like the same or not?
No, every neighborhood is different.
Oh, let's talk about it.
The demographic is completely different. In fact, we've gotten stories on our podcast about there was this one guy who lived in Coral Gables, and he was picking up this girl in Hialeah, and he was like, I would never venture out there. And I was like, what the hell?
Completely different.
Why?
Yeah.
Like what's the way the women act is different and everything?
Yes.
So give me a stereotypical Miami Beach girl, because I guess am I a Miami Beach girl now? It's too early. Okay.
Yeah.
You need to acclimate.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So what is a Miami Beach girl?
I mean, do you go to the beach every day?
Yeah.
You're a Miami Beach
Check.
girl.
Check. Yeah. Check.
It's like a block away. You can go walking. It's a beautiful thing. Enjoy it.
It is.
Yeah.
I literally have just like tan so much since I've been here. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I never knew you could just be in the sun and like just have this like tan, but you don't feel like you're tanning. And it's so the women in Miami Beach, is there like certain characteristics that you say over like regular women in Miami, or is there like a difference with that and the way that they act?
People come here to drink and party.
Yeah, I was gonna say I picture them as very hard drinkers, and
Oh my
and really like to
goodness.
get down.
In Miami
And about-
Beach?
Yes.
I don't drink, so
Oh, okay.
at
so-
least that part would be me. So heavy drinkers, do they heavy party like club goers?
drug consumption as well.
Wow.
And yeah, it's just the kind of atmosphere that's been building here for years.
So what about women that are like Coral Gables? What is it?
The Gables, yeah.
Gables.
Yeah, the Gables.
I went shopping in that area, so you know. And then okay, so as you venture off into Miami, what is the difference? Like, is it more normal? Or
Define normal.
like just
about
regular
no,
women
it's
walking
normal.
their dog and just
Okay,
being regular, having a job and just
I have some
going
cliches
home.
that I think, or like some
Let's
stereotypes
hear
from
the
like
stereotypes and the cliches.
Okay, so in the Gables, very bougie, high fashion,
Oh.
very educated.
Okay.
Then we have Hialeah, where it's a bit more ratchet.
Okay.
If you don't speak Spanish, don't go because
Oh my
you will have a
gosh.
really hard time going anywhere.
Okay.
Doral,
The Rao is very nice now. It used to be what, a dump,
it used to be just grasslands, yeah.
and now it's picking up. They're building a lot of new things. Very nice malls. You can go there
Yeah.
for food, drink, entertainment. The comedy club is there as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
In Doral.
And that's called Doral, Doral, right?
Yeah.
I've seen that. Okay, I've seen that area. Like, I think I've been some places on the map. So, what about the difference? Because I didn't really realize even until moving here, there's like South Beach, Mid Beach, North Beach. Do you guys know the differences with those things?
I know it just by like Google Maps, like the split.
But you don't
right?
know, like, as far as like environment.
I personally, when I go to the beach, I go to the North Beach.
Okay.
What's the difference?
Further up.
I'm starting to realize that too, right? Because the like South Beach is more tourist.
That's where everyone goes. Yeah.
And then North Beach, especially like going with my family, like it's a lot more chill and like secluded versus like like twerking and the turn up crowd, the Ratchets. So
So the further up north you go, I feel like even the water gets a little cleaner. I don't know if
Really?
you noticed all
Yeah.
of the seaweed in the water here in South Beach. So it's like a friendlier environment.
So I know that you guys have something called Story Time on your podcast where is it listeners like send you messages where they're able to talk about like an experience meeting someone?
So for the most part, it's either they submit it to us and then we have to respond and go back and forth a bit for some details, but it's largely journalism. So I will talk to people, interview them, be like, hey, so what's your story? How did you get here? Or like, tell me something about what's dating like here. And people are more than willing to open up, especially about relationships, surprisingly.
Okay.
Especially after a couple of drinks.
Especially after drinking, yes. That's actually the...
So wait, do they have to be like intoxicated to give it?
No,
Oh,
not at all. No, people
get them
sometimes
honest?
It loosens them up.
Yeah.
The
The
honesty,
really spicy
stuff,
details.
right, comes out. Like, okay.
You're gonna notice it here. If you ever go out to a restaurant or you ever meet somebody new, they'll just start on their own. You don't even have to say anything.
just a quick nudge and
Yeah.
they're good.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's get into one of those stories.
So the episode from this Thursday that we shot
That is airing on Monday.
that will air on Monday is called Meeting at the Crossroads. And it is a story, well, it's going to be two parts. It's his perspective and her perspective. Basically how they got to where they're at right now. Because they've been married for 6 to 7 years now. And I wanted to know how they got there. And as I'm listening to them, I'm like, wow, this is like, you guys went from here to here to like here. How, like, it was insane. So his perspective, he was 19 and he was having an affair with this 19-year-old woman. And
Who was married? Yeah.
yeah, well, and an affair entails marriage.
So wait.
So he
he was married.
No,
So he was having an affair
with a married woman.
with a married woman
who was also 19.
That was also 19. Okay.
Yeah. And of course, the husband finds out. approaches them also so he begins to stalk her on top of it because he's trying to find out who it is, right?
Okay.
And
wait, so the husband begins to stalk her, or the one having the affair?
no, the husband begins to. Okay, so hold on, backtrack. Let's cut this. All right. Okay, so the story is that so there's this guy who's 19 years old, and he begins to have an affair with this 19-year-old married woman.
Okay.
Okay. Of course, the husband finds out, and he is suspicious. He begins to kind of stalk her and kind of track her movements. And eventually, he does find her with him in the car. And he's like banging on the door, like, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? And he gets off, and he's like, it's me who's having the affair with you. The husband goes in shock, leaves. Eventually, of course, they divorce. She moves in with the parents of the guy, right? So they begin living together now. So
Oh my
divorce completely, and they
goodness.
begin living together.
So, question: did the guy know that she was married during this affair?
Yeah, he did.
Wow. So he was like in love, probably.
No.
No.
Oh, not
did it
yet.
For the
No,
challenge,
no.
he specifically states,
Yeah, he said it.
"Hey,
He
just
said it.
because
What would
I
the
could."
challenge? Oh my god.
The conqueror.
I mean,
It's
but
the
at the
conqueror.
point that she's living at the parents' house, is that really still the conquering? Like she's actually moved in, bro.
Well, okay, so the story progresses, and
Okay.
he says that he did fall in love with her.
I want to say a detail that the husband of the 19-year-old girl, he did not know that she was cheating on him. Remember, she moved out of from their house where they were living to our main character's place.
Our main character.
So it wasn't even that it was confirmed. The husband just had a hunch.
Okay.
And he was acting very unhinged. He's like, you have to be cheating on me. Like he I guess took the I guess he just
When you know, you know.
overreacted, you know?
And and also when you know, you know.
Yeah, intuition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have kids also. I think
The married,
no, the new one.
the new one. Okay.
So ex-husband out, right?
So they
New
move in
couple.
together.
They move in together.
They have children.
Yes. I think one was about a year or two, and the other one was a newborn, a couple of months. And she begins to have an affair with somebody else. So it circled back. And he's like, it's karmic retribution. That's what it was.
For him.
Yeah.
Are they still together?
No, they're not. No.
How did you get both of their stories? How did you get them to agree to
No,
this?
no. I got his story because he's married now with somebody else. So basically, okay, so guy A, right? Our protagonist is now with, somebody else. And they've been together for 6 to 7 years. So I got his story and everything that came before
Wow.
his partner.
You know, and it gets a lot deeper than that.
So
there's so
you
many
guys are gonna
details.
have to tune into the show to get the full story. But I think we have enough to have some discussion. So let's talk about ratchets and people and women that you should not settle down with or have children with. Let's think in this specific case. So why do you think that he would think that a woman doing this kind of stuff would be the woman to take home, move in, have children with? Isn't this like a red flag number one, right? Because they say well, for women, I don't know if men say this, but with women they say you lose him how you got him or something like that. So like if you meet a guy and he's cheating and then you're like, oh, he's gonna leave her and get with me, then yeah, that may happen, and then he's gonna leave you and get with someone else. So as a man, isn't that kind of like the number one thing that you would look at as like not wifey material?
Yeah, absolutely, because it's not like once a cheater, always a cheater. It's just people have certain tendencies that if they feel that they can get away with it, they will do it if they have the opportunity. But in this case, both of them had red flags. It wasn't just her. He did something he shouldn't have, and
The ex.
our main character.
The main character.
We call him the protagonist.
The protagonist.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but the protagonist.
Because for him, it was just, he did it because it was a challenge for him.
because he had the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right.
And we were discussing that women, I'm sorry, that not women, that men are more likely to cheat because it's just there.
Right. Okay. That's true. And I do feel like men will be as faithful as their options. Do you guys agree with that?
I think so. Yeah,
Just say it
That's
on
pretty
camera
fair to say, especially
for everyone.
in a place like this.
You said yes.
I believe so. Yeah.
Do you agree? You need to say it in the camera.
Okay, in the camera.
So, I believe men are as faithful as their options because let's say that there is a man that goes to work, comes home, he could be a man. So because there's a difference, right? There's men that are actual like cheaters and they're constantly seeking out the next opportunity to cheat on their spouse or like get some, rush from it or something, maybe like a serial cheater. But then there also are men that I think don't necessarily have the intention to cheat. They're like regular guy that maybe wouldn't cheat on the regular day, but let's say an option becomes available to him and he's in a situation to take that opportunity. That option is there now and he's going to take it because men are only as faithful as their options. So if they're going to and from work or whatever, they're not really getting options. They're just, they're not looking for other options. But if an option appears, they're going to take it.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. Though quite cynical as I am, right? I do have to agree with that because men will cheat if the option is there. I speak from experience.
Oh.
Unfortunately. That also goes to show that we probably weren't in love with a person. I like to agree. I would like to think, because if we did truly value them, we wouldn't have done it. There's also this sense of like, and we're talking about it of machismo or like masculinity, like what defines a man. And there's the stereotype that like, oh, you must pile all these bodies, right, before you finally choose to have the one or settle, because having the one and settling are two different things. Where men are like looked more valuable if they have just been with so many other people, whereas women, what's your count? Oh no, I don't want to do that. And men think like that for some reason.
Men are thinking about what a woman's count is.
Yes.
And you're saying women aren't thinking of saying something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I personally don't care.
You don't care what a woman's count is?
Not at all.
Why?
In fact, I would rather you have some experience so that you are not as, I guess, shy when it comes to intimacy, or you're more open about, hey, tell me what you like. Yeah. I like the communication. So I'd rather they have some level of experience, whereas just a blank slate, oh God, no, please.
So have you ever heard about like statistics that the more women sleep with more men, the less they have the capability to bond as much? So they're like quicker to like leave the relationship. Like they, because it's like women, like we're the receivers and like, it's a little different for us when we're being intimate, and then like men, it's different. We think about what we have, our packaging.
I think it's a little true for both, though. Men that just stack more and more body counts, they're not forming emotional attachments to these women. They're just doing it because they can, So
But do you think that like men and women? That's where I'm going to say, like, do you believe that there's like a difference in the way that men behave and the way that women behave? Because women do different things. Like we have children and stuff. Like if I'm sleeping with like 10 men and I get pregnant, then like how do I know who the father is? Or it's like you're sleeping with 10 women. If none of them are sleeping with other men, you're the father. So how do you think that that's like a equal playing field there? Since it's
no, I mean equality has never existed. Whether it comes to the social aspect or the political aspect. But, okay, I was actually having this discussion with a friend of mine from work, and he's like very open that he can separate physical pleasure from like emotional connection. So he's like, yeah, I could, and of course he's been with his partner for a very long time, but he's like, if it's just different for men, whereas men can just basically orgasm and like just get dressed and walk out the door. Women have a harder time doing that in comparison.
So you've seen it happen where it is like that stereotypical men want to go, the women want it to be something more. So going back to what you were saying about like, if you so, oh my goodness, this is what's wrong with me. Cause like my mind is like, cause I hit on like, my mind just like thinks about so many things at all the times. So one thing that you said was that you think that men wouldn't cheat if they truly value you. So if a man cheats on you, you don't think that there's circumstances that could have happened where he does still, because if you're saying men can detach their emotions and, you know, maybe they were drinking, it was a pleasurable moment, does that not mean that they may not value the woman that they love and that they've been with, and that is all these great things, and maybe there's this little ratchet at the club that they ran into, she's like throwing herself on him, she has a nice body, and it's just that fun time? Because you did say that men can disassociate their emotions like from like a physical pleasure. Do you want to speak to that?
Oh man.
So there's a term that we use. I don't know if it's popular. It's the post-nut clarity.
What does that mean?
Okay, so when a man sees, you know, a girl at the club and he finds her physically attractive and he wants to move, you know, he's got these chemicals running.
I was gonna bring that up too.
I think I'm getting it. Okay.
He might not be thinking straight.
Right.
Maybe there's some drinks are involved, and he, you know, he's hyper focused, like a tiger looking at, you know, his next prey. So things happen, and as soon as like that orgasm hits, his mind changes. Like he has a moment of clarity. Like, what have I done? Did I really mean to do this?
The reality check, and then he's looking at her now. He's like, "Oh, she's not even as pretty as she looked before." And
sometimes that walk out the door is like the walk of shame for them. You know?
Wow. So okay, so in that case, do all men, are they subject to cheat, or do you think there's such thing as like a man who can be completely faithful just because he may value someone?
I think men could be completely faithful. It just depends what kind of stage in your life you're at and what is your mentality at that point.
It takes a lot of patience, a lot of control, and a lot of appreciation for your partner. Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like I wanted to say some more things about that, you guys' the story time situation. So with that guy, we were saying like full circle coming around, and we were saying like, or we were just talking about the fact that he was able to experience like what the guy was experiencing, even though like he was doing it just because he could. But where do you think that, how do you think that in that situation where you're just doing something like for a challenge and then you fall in love, should there be like a cutoff time, like if you're doing something just for like just to say you can do it, or like a challenge where you cut that off so that you, because at some point he was maybe doing it just for physical, and then at some point like the emotional came.
Well, there was a factor that I left out, and I will quote from the story.
Okay.
Because I remember it very vividly. It said, "And I liked her not just for her tig bitties, but because of her intelligence."
Oh.
But I think so. I have this thing where I always say people are vain. We're attracted to the physical, and that's okay.
I think it's okay for sure.
But we stay afterwards for the personality.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So now that we're talking about what not to look for in a woman, let's talk a little bit about what are some of the general attributes that men look for in a quality woman that they may want to have a long-term, lifetime marriage or relationship. Let's talk about that. What can you guys say?
What am I looking for? Crap. Am I looking
Is this
for?
okay, Cupid?
I just sembra mai.
Wait. Speaking of that, so the person that cuts my hair, he is this old school Cuban, and he was like, "Daron, this is I've been cutting my hair with him since I was like 18, 19, and when I was very young, he's like, Daron, just go and throw some." It's a Spanish phrase, so I will try my best to translate it. Go and throw some corn, right?
And say it in Spanish.
And the
too.
chickens will come and just pick.
How would you say it how do you say it in the Spanish way?
So in Spanish, it's like, Daron, ve y tira maíz, y tú vas a ver quién pica. Basically, go, you shot at everyone, and you'll see who reciprocates it. That way, you're just sleeping around with everyone. And not the healthiest thing. Very hedonistic.
But the culture definitely feeds into it.
Yes, it comes back to culture. But, so, okay, Cupid, what checks off?
We have a running joke about Daron in the podcast. He does everything for the experience.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's all about the experience. Like everything he does.
Everything is just
Right.
it's for the experience. So, yeah.
Wait, you guys were supposed to give me the general attributes that men look for in a woman. You guys totally tried to go around that.
He likes to deflect all these questions.
I see.
Yeah.
He's like, basically, it's for the experience.
the great
Moving right
deflector.
along.
Next question.
I'll go. So,
Okay.
Wait, I want to know.
You
Like,
wanna-
can I push you? Can I ask? Like,
Absolutely,
can
please.
I ask?
I do it all the time.
Can I ask why you don't want to say?
Okay, because I'm not the best at it. I don't.
You know what you want?
Yeah, sometimes I don't know what I want.
Are you like the guy that looks for just like big
No, that's
breast
not it.
and
at all.
Take
intelligence?
bitties.
That's not it. I think I look too hard into someone, and I see things that are like not a big deal, and I make it a big deal. So that's like kind of on me. That's my fault. I just got out of like a really bad relationship that I was in for about 8 years.
8
Yeah,
years.
and I'm like getting back into that scene, so I have to change my whole mentality about how I look at things. And that's why I don't feel comfortable when answering that right now, because it's
You're
so
like,
many
I thought I effing knew what to look for in a woman, but clearly I didn't. So
Clearly.
back to the drawing board.
So we've spoken about that in our podcast, or we have referenced it a couple times because it was a very long time.
And it just happened less than a year ago that we finally went
I'm
our
so
separate ways.
sorry.
Oh, but things are looking better.
Things are looking better. It's just getting back in there after 8 years of
Single in Miami.
It's rough. It's rough.
Nah, but you're doing better, bro. And seeing your best friend go through that, and you can't, there's nothing you could do but let him write it out.
Yeah.
So would you say now going back into the dating like scene that it's different from when you left it?
Yeah, a lot more. A lot more is done through like the dating apps.
Yeah.
A lot more of it, and it's a shame. And I don't want to do that. I want to meet someone naturally, organically, that I can connect with. But I guess what I'm looking for now, knowing what I know, is someone who's responsible with their careers, with their money, and someone who. Next question.
Okay, Dayron, you said you were going to answer that. So what are some of the general attributes that you think men like look for in a woman when they're considering moving on from making it just maybe a physical thing to actually adding maybe that title and wanting to move forward? Like what qualities would you say, okay, this is someone that I think...
Okay, I can't speak for all men in general, but I'll speak partially for both myself and for the general population. Okay, for me, I need to be able to have some kind of intellectual stimulus. So if you cannot provide that, we're gonna have a hard time conversing. Somebody who's well educated, oh, that's such a turn on. Somebody who's it doesn't have to be the arts, but I'm really into the arts in general because I teach the humanities and what it's like to, what is the human condition like. And I love that. So just somebody who can engage with me on a deeper level than just going out and just that to me would just be boring. So intelligence is definitely a factor. 2, when it comes to money, yes, are you responsible with it? And do you have any aspirations? Do you have goals? Because I am very driven, and I would like to have somebody on the same page as well. And this is just pure vanity at this point. But do you have tattoos?
Do you have tattoos?
Humor is really important as well.
Yeah.
Humor,
Yeah.
okay.
It's so hard to interact with someone that doesn't get your sense of humor, because you don't know if you're gonna sound offensive to them.
So you guys have like a dark sense of humor?
Sometimes.
Sarcasm?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
like right up
Yeah.
my alley. And it's just like, you feel so bad when you guys, when you're have that like sarcastic humor and like sometimes I don't know how to cut it off and it's just like overboard and it's just like, I can't stop. Have you guys ever seen Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yes, Larry,
That is
Larry
like-
David is amazing.
Yes. So it's like that kind of stuff is just like so funny to me. And like that jerk, it's like such a jerk to everyone, but it's just like hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay. So thinking,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Last thing.
Please.
The sex is very important.
Yeah. Okay. See.
Wait, so I would have a question about that because I think, is it really like, so how can a woman? I don't know. Never mind. I think I'm not going to ask that question. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Next question.
Next question.
Next question.
No. So you have to have some kind of sexual chemistry that works well. That's actually why I said that I would prefer to be with a woman who is somewhat experienced in the field, because they would be more willing to open up as to what they like. And I love that. Tell me what you like.
So what if she's been with like, let's say 50 guys?
Holy crap. Like, kudos to you. I don't know.
But that's cool with you. You would totally marry and wife it up.
If the intimacy is
Yeah.
Really?
You may have had you may have had the wild days during your your college years. It really doesn't make a difference to me.
I've never heard a guy say that.
Yeah,
I've
no.
never. So I wonder, like, now if they're lying.
No, but but I'm coming off. I speak from experience usually, and like, okay, so she's been with 50. I'm reflecting on myself. I'm not gonna say how many I've been with,
Right?
because it might
Yeah,
turn her
it might-
off
yeah,
as
right.
well. So
Do you think
it
that
levels the playing field for me? I
if
guess.
you've been with like a woman that maybe hasn't had that high of a body count, would you feel like she's more like, do you feel that she's more like inexperienced? Like, does it make it less pleasurable for you?
No, not at all. I think this is a higher level of intimacy, and I really, okay, what makes a relationship? Communication. And I think communicating in the bedroom is very important. You need to know what you need to tell each other what you guys like to be able to give and receive pleasure.
So, like I was saying, for me, it's very like the most intimate part is that, and you were saying that for you, you don't feel that way.
No,
or-
I personally don't. And just how I referenced somebody that I knew earlier, that he was able to disassociate the physical from the emotional, it's the same way. I feel like if I'm able to open up to you and tell you exactly how I feel and things that I would just like to share with you that I typically don't talk about with anyone, that to me holds more weight than the sex.
But I agree. And I do think you're right for a man. So that's where I do feel like it's not an equal playing field. And I do feel like men and women are different. For like a woman, I don't know that necessarily like would be the deepest thing just to us to talk, right? Because women always talk and we're talking about our feelings, and that comes natural. But for us to give the most, like, you know.
Here's a question I have for you. You're really big on energy. What would be the difference, or what would be worse? 50 different energies of like regular guys, you know, like regular transactions basically.
Okay.
Or one really bad energy for like 8 years. Like really negative. What would be worse?
I would say the 50.
50?
The 50 would be worse, I think, just because I think, you know, I don't know what that would do to me as a woman, to have like so many times that I let a man enter in me and it was like meaningless and it was nothing. I don't know how I would walk away from, like, so maybe that would more impact me mentally. Like, I don't know how, you know, because at some point it's just like, wow, like what is this for? And yeah, you might get one long-term toxic kind of relationship, and it definitely will impact you. It definitely does, you know. Even if you hang around someone all the time, they rub off on you. So imagine, you know, having that personal, intimate experience with them. But I do think that at least it was just one. Now, when you're thinking of that 50 people, they all have stuff. They just may not have told you because maybe you don't know them well enough, but you just don't know. I think overall, just don't be with a toxic person. But 50,
So
way worse.
I've been asked about
Personal. Go ahead.
I've been asked about my body count, and I've asked about their body counts. And
So you ask this whenever you enter a new relationship?
if I'm asked, I'm gonna ask.
Okay.
I don't usually initiate, but I'm
Okay, I don't
like,
I don't ask.
But things that you don't know won't hurt you. If you want to have that conversation, be prepared to get hurt, honestly.
I do think that. So do you feel like once you actually ask, then that you can start to do like the judgment thing?
But I don't want to, like.
So you wouldn't even want to ask.
For me,
what if they
it's-
ask you? What would you feel comfortable, or would you say like you don't want to discuss?
I was actually going to say it. I would say, does it matter? I'm with you now. The past is insignificant. We're moving forward together.
And what if they just say like, well, they want to know about your past, your history, like who you've been with and how many people you've been intimate with?
I will share with you moments that were meaningful to me, but I don't think it matters. You want a number. Does the number really impact us?
Well, and realistically, like how you were saying, if you ask, do you feel that they're honestly going to give you an honest answer?
Oh, so you think they're lowballing?
Well, that's what's been said, right?
I feel like I would.
You would lowball?
I think so.
Yeah.
They
I
say
don't
like
wanna
when a
hurt-
woman
I
tells
don't
you you're
wanna-
supposed to like add however many, like it's a certain amount, you're just automatically supposed to add.
So again, if you're gonna assume that it's a low ball, you're gonna hurt yourself.
Wait. So there's some mathematical formula for
There is.
finding the real
Guys,
number?
guys know. Like I can't think of it right now. If I can think of it, I'll put it up on the
It's like
screen.
1/3.
Oh,
But
God.
they say
they're
like if
getting
a
to
guy,
1/3.
if a girl tells you she's been with like 10, that means it's 20. Like they or how you add however many. I don't know if it's like 6, 9, or whatever.
So then if there's already a premise that we're lying to each other about it, why have the conversation?
Okay, but do you think that there would be some telltale signs, right? Like maybe if she's more experienced in the bedroom, that would be an indication that she's probably been around. Versus if she was like really inexperienced, that would come out as well.
Well, here's also how you phrase it. Hey, I would like to try this. What do you think? Does that signal that you have tried it before? No, it's just like, what do you feel about trying this?
Oh
I'm
no,
curious.
that's not. Right? That's
Yeah.
just like more curiosity. I'm saying like the way that she may perform.
No, but
Like my goodness, how do you know how to do?
okay.
You look like you practiced that at least 100 times.
That's one hell of a grip.
Loosen it up, please.
So with what you guys are saying, which you don't care about body count, do you feel like that would have been something that most men would say maybe 50 years ago? Because I think a lot of men would agree with you now, but do you think maybe 50 years ago that men had that same stance on it?
Men have always been proud of their body counts.
Yeah, there's always this ingrained toxic masculinity that we are. I think we are trying to get away from as a society, but it's still there. Where you have to go and it's plow through the fields, and it's, do you really have to?
So let's talk a little bit about the toxic masculinity. Like, what do you think that is
I think it's a little bit of insecurity.
for men on men?
Yeah,
men's
like
part?
if someone's so proud of their body count and they talk to someone and they ask them and that person's body count is higher, they're gonna feel insecure about it. That's a toxic trait.
It is, because you're insecure about yourself. But I don't know. I will keep referring to, at the end of it all, doesn't matter if we're moving forward with somebody else now. What does the past have to do with it? Whoever I've seen, I just don't see it as impactful to our relationship in the present. But going back to the toxic masculinity, it's been there for generations. I mean, we've been trying to degrade women as men for years. Dear God, it's just been written in history, and I teach my kids all the time. Like, please be better.
So I'm trying to think of I want to ask like a couple questions about that, but I'm trying to think of like how I want to maybe phrase it or what question I may have. So when you say, what are some ways that you feel like in today's society that is still, do you feel like it still exists in today's society? And if so,
Yeah.
how? If you can give like maybe one example.
So there's a sense of entitlement. Because of the dating apps, I feel people are not able to handle rejection in an adequate way. Where you're like, okay, cool, let me move on with my life. Instead, men and women are being entitled now to like, oh, but why? Or like, oh, and let me continue the chase. No, bro, no means no. Like, learn it. And there's a sense of entitlement in present that I find a lot. I don't know if it's because of the dating apps and because people have not had enough face-to-face interactions in that aspect. But Jesus Christ, the entitlement factor is getting out of hand.
And mental health is in a decline as well.
Yeah.
That plays a important part.
So do you do you have advice for like maybe someone, if like a woman was in a relationship, if she was experiencing toxic masculinity, like what would that look like? Like what would be some of those red flags that you think?
You or me?
I'm not toxic. I can't.
Yeah, right, bro. Yeah, okay.
I can't. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
So you wouldn't know what to look for?
So I know a couple things. In men, I'm thinking of myself.
Like controlling.
Okay, it took me a very long time to learn how to compromise because I am so it's not that I'm domineering, but I need to exercise control in things that I'm able to control, so that those things that I cannot kind of level out, right? So I've learned to also compromise, like, okay, so you know what? Maybe this is the better route. That way it makes us both happy, and getting away from the mentality of I, right? It's not I, it's us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to say, then that could probably be, so I guess, because that seems more just like learning to be more compromising. And that would be like, I wouldn't say that it has anything to do with masculinity, because I do think in a relationship, I had to learn not to just say I. So then that raises the question, can women be toxic, can they demonstrate toxic masculinity? Because some women can be like super masculine and controlling and domineering and not, you know, want to compromise.
For me, a toxic trait that I had. You. Oh yeah. No, yeah. When I would get into arguments, with my previous relationship, she had to be always right, and that kind of developed that same habit in me, to where if I have an argument, after that, like I would feel like I was always right. I didn't care, and that's something that I've had to work on. A lot of the bad habits that I saw in this relationship kind of like rubbed off on me, and I'm like working to clear that out. You know, that energy. I'm trying to cleanse it, and I feel like I'm getting better at it.
Some base. I'm sorry, Jazz.
I was just gonna say, I think that's pretty deep that he said that, because I do remember being in like a bad point in a relationship and feeling like, okay, is that a mosquito?
It's a little fruit fly. It's just a little fruit.
You smacked it towards me.
No, it's just a little fruit fly.
So, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Miami things. You get used to it.
I'm really not. I'm not used to that. Okay. But my goodness, it is a Miami thing. So what I was saying, what was I saying?
The energy.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So I was saying that was a really deep thing, because I remember feeling like, you know, like you kind of like start to like really hate some of these things about that person, right? And in hating that, and you kind of like don't want to end up somehow subconsciously becoming and doing the same very things that you hate about that person. Like you end up becoming the same things you hate, right? Like, let's say if like a person's lying to you all the time, and lying to everyone all the time, and you're like not like that, you know, and then maybe you feel like, well, I should lie to you because, you know, but then you don't realize like that's actually becoming the very thing that you hate, right? So I think that's a really deep and good, you know, observation that you were able to like self-analyze and say, you know, wow, I think some negative things have rubbed off on me and I have to work on that, because that's like a part of the healing process.
Definitely, I changed completely from the moment I started to where I am now.
Things get better, like I said.
Well, being that you guys have the Single in Miami podcast, do you feel at any point being single gets old?
Yeah, I'm not into that partying mood anymore. You know, and this is after playing the field for a while, and okay, just because we are single wouldn't necessarily mean that we aren't dating, right? But in that sense, whoever is supposed to be in our lives will come naturally, I feel, at this point.
So does being single get old? Oh my God, you guys are both deflection.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, remember?
He's rubbed off on you.
I don't think
because that was deflection there.
Getting single does get old, and then being in a relationship gets old, and then it's like a cycle.
Oh, wow. I didn't think of that part too, right? Being single gets old, being in a relationship gets old. Yeah. So you just got to keep switching it up.
How do you spice up your relationship?
It's definitely not healthy. But yeah, we want what we don't have. When we're single, we want a relationship, we want intimacy, we want appreciation, respect. When we're in a relationship, we want freedom.
Wow.
We want to party, we want to drink, we want to do the things we like.
Do you feel like there's like a somewhere in the middle, like maybe you can do these things with the person you're with?
Yeah, that would be healthy.
That would be the ideal
So
thing.
what happens? Like, have you ever experienced that? Like, where you were maybe doing that, and then you were single, and then maybe you met a girl, and maybe she goes out and stuff too, but then all of a sudden you get together, she doesn't want you to go out anymore, or is it that you don't want her to go with you, or like how does that work?
You both need space at the end of it all. I think space is very healthy in a relationship. But if she's telling you that you cannot go out, that's a red flag, homie. Like, that's
So
not
that's
healthy.
toxic.
Yeah. and speaking of, hold on, and to backtrack just slightly to your question, because I just thought about it as we were talking about that. So toxic masculine traits is simply not helping around the house. If you guys live together or coexist, for example, if you're just there on the couch having a beer and just watching TV, or you're doing everything, yeah, no, ditch that guy.
The term was,
I want to say though, wouldn't that depend on the roles? Like as far as like, because I will say I've been on both sides, right? Like I would be so PO'd if that were the case. Like if my husband was just like sitting around not doing anything, you know, which is usually the case, right? If we were like both doing work or like a certain amount of work, right? But if like I've taken a more like leisure, you know, like being a housewife and maybe just being with the children and stuff like that, and like he's doing all of the working, so maybe he comes home and he's like really exhausted. But I think if we're like both working, because I remember a point like we were both really working a lot, and you know I'm like, okay, no, it only like me being the woman and like cleaning up only applies if like I'm just like at home cleaning up. But if we're both out and doing things like working and stuff like that, then we both have to come home and contribute. Do you think it matters like the role, like if maybe she has more leisure time that she does take on those, you know, household duties as a wife, or do you think it doesn't matter, like whether or not, either way?
I think so, because taking care of children is a job on its own.
That you never get to clock out.
Never.
I say that all the time.
When you're unhealthy, anything.
No off days.
That's
ever.
One hell of a
even
job.
now. We've already experienced it.
So you're still contributing, you know, it's just differently. Perhaps he comes home and you have dinner waiting for him or something. I would be fine with that. I'd be perfect.
You know, the thing is, I think when men clean up, and I don't know if this is all men, but I don't feel like they really clean up.
That's a term that we learned on Thursday's episode of the podcast.
It's
weaponized incompetence.
Yes.
Where men want to do things so badly that
you will in turn do it for us.
Yeah.
So they're playing.
Oh, am I getting tricked?
What?
Is someone tricking me to do that? Is that like
Sometimes it could be.
It's a mind game.
Oh, so they do it like a bad job. So like, no, don't worry, babe. I'll do it.
I'm gonna wash this cup, just throw water on it, right? And you're seeing it. Oh, he didn't even use soap. No, wait, use soap. No, I'm gonna do it myself now. And that's the idea.
That's a term I learned.
That's what's happening here.
And it hurt me as a man to hear that my gender does this type of stuff.
Oh my! Now that is for sure.
But
how does masculinity and femininity? Boy, if you don't get. How does masculinity and femininity impact relationships?
that was great. That last one was really
Thank
clean,
you.
crisp.
Spot on.
Thank you.
Impact relationships.
I think so. I think gender roles or social roles are starting to blend in together because we are working towards equality as best as we can. But it's just how we were speaking about it. Who's the one that it? I think it all depends on communication, man. Like, okay, you are working nonstop, right? While your wife is, she's taking time off to care for the kids. So you have that talk. Hey, you know, since I'm working, you know, and you're gonna be taking care of the kids. Like, what are the boundaries now? You know, what do you want me to help you with? Also, like, what is it you need help with, and vice versa. Like, but I think it just comes down to communication.
And that's very difficult because it's been ingrained in our culture that, you know, we have to be masculine, the man of the house. You know, even at a young age, they call us the man of the house because we're expected to do everything we have to do. And it's difficult. We do need to find a balance in a healthy relationship, but it's gonna be a journey.
So outside of toxic masculinity, what are some actual good masculine traits that would be helpful in a relationship, and what are some good feminine traits that would be good in a relationship?
You get things done. You know, you don't mope around. That's a masculine trait.
Yeah.
You don't overthink things. You just do it.
Yeah,
I do think men are like more action, like, right, you know, like I gotta go out there, I gotta do it, you know.
So some negative traits of men too. We bottle our emotions until we can no longer, and then just burst.
I'm very guilty of that.
Yeah,
That's true.
I have been as well, and just being able to not let it get to that point. Otherwise, it's not gonna come off the right way.
So what are some good feminine traits like that women would have? That like to what I'm saying is like, right, I think masculine and feminine like do create a balance, right? You know, and they work together. You know, there's like certain things that a mother brings to the table. And I mean, well, maybe they I'm always thinking like children, but maybe they don't have children. So there's certain things that a wife brings to the table, and there's certain things that a husband brings to the table. And then even when they have children, they do end up, you know, there's a like mother and father, and they both bring very important, vital things like to that child. Like, you know, I don't know if you guys grew up with both of your parents and seeing like the dynamic and what one brought to the table and what one did, you know, what one did. And it's like how one child goes to the mother for specific things and goes to the father for specific things. So there is like some balance there with the masculine and feminine, like they both bring something. So what do you guys think are some feminine traits that a woman can bring to the relationship to make it a more healthy, you know, wholesome environment for everyone?
Well, women tend to be more nurturing, whereas men are, I don't want to say disengaged from their emotions, but we tend to be.
Yeah. So I think that's like important too, because even when you're with a man, like how you're saying, like you don't necessarily express yourself. So when you're with a woman that does show that nurturing side of herself, she makes you feel more comfortable to be open and to talk about the way you feel and not feel bad about it. But if she also has like that same masculine trait of like not expressing herself, and then you're not expressing yourself, it's like there's like a clash there, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where the masculine and feminine would like balance each other out, because it's like, okay, I don't feel comfortable talking about it, and she's like, oh, I feel comfortable talking about it. So
and
talk
women are
about
very
it.
good about speaking to each other about their emotions. We just started talking about our emotions in August.
In August
Through the
of this year?
through the podcast. So no, I do have to say that a lot of our friends have seen our growth, to say the least, because it's and it is an ongoing joke that we just started talking about our emotions, but that really comes down to it. For some reason, the podcast has been very therapeutic for us when it comes to that aspect.
Some traits I would appreciate, some patience and some support, because there's been times where I get home and I'm like fed up, I'm like bottled in so hard that I'm ready to bust, and I snap, and you know I say things that maybe I didn't want to say or I didn't mean. It's just how I felt terrible at the time. And something I could appreciate is just like a little bit of patience, know that this isn't me on a regular basis. It's just something that I let get too far. And I'm usually very guilty and just apologetic about it. And just have a little bit of patience with me, a little bit of support instead of, you know, snapping back at me. Maybe understand where I'm coming from. That's a trait that I would appreciate a lot, you know?
That's so beautiful, because I said that on one of my podcasts, and it actually it's like a little emotional for me, because I'm very feisty and I'm very like snap back, right? And it really didn't do anything for my relationship. And I realized like when I would be more patient and just like let him see like how crazy he's being right now, and just stay calm and be patient. So quickly he would be like, I'm so sorry. Like he would like check himself, and then, you know, it would happen less. But I think that patience takes time, right, to develop, because I'm like right automatically like, oh, you're coming here with that attitude, or, you know, just wanting to be combative and wanting to like defend myself, right? And I think also too, like growing up and feeling like I have to be strong at all times, like I have to be a protector of myself, and not really wanting to be vulnerable, right? And I guess that is a balance that is so important, because when you are patient with a man that maybe come home and he's upset and he's angry, and even vice versa, right? If your woman comes home, and because sometimes I've snapped on him, you know, I might be like on my cycle or something like that, and I'm just like, why did you do this? And he's like, he just won't even respond, and then I'll be like, I'm sorry, babe. I'm just like right now, I just don't like you know. But we catch ourselves when the other person like takes that time to be patient and just like not be so quick to snap. What were you gonna say, Dayron?
And speaking on that note, and if you are impatient, being able to be like, oh man, I'm sorry, and apologize, because for some reason men also find a harder time saying I'm sorry, and I don't understand why.
I don't. I know when I fuck up, and
No.
I can.
Yeah.
Well, it's us. We think very similar.
Yeah, there's a pride in it.
Yeah.
I just think that you don't want to let yourself get stepped over either. You know,
Right,
if your significant other is just treating you, and you see that it's a constant thing, you don't have to take that.
Yeah.
But arguments, like in a heated argument, the more you talk, like the more you argue, the worse it's gonna get.
Very true.
So
Very
the best thing to do is just be patient, just let it cool off, and then have that.
And pick your battles. Sometimes it's just not worth arguing about.
That's true. That is so true. But yes, I do think that patience is, and I guess that goes on both sides, but definitely if you know that your man was out there and he was like dealing with things at work or whatever the case, you don't know what he may have been dealing with, but if he does like snap, just to take the second to let him realize that he snapped before you snap back. Because like you said, once two people snap, then it's going to be harder to bring that down. And I do think, another thing that I think about the masculine and the feminine energy. Okay, so like that masculinity thing that men have, right? Like that, like fighting and stuff like that, like physical fighting. Like, I think, right, let's say two men are upset, right? And they're both like masculine and they're upset. They're at the bar. They're like, oh, blah, blah. You know, this is how I imagine it. Just like, this is like, right. It's going to get physical. So I think like when you're dealing with a woman and she's more feminine and she's like softer, you don't ever think, like, if you're a good guy, obviously if you're not like a woman beater, but if you don't think to hit her, you know. But like when a woman does act like, you know, she's getting in a man's face and she's like acting just like, so the thing is she's matching that masculine energy. And so men don't really know how to deal with that, because it's like, you know, another man I would deal with this, maybe we would just go out and brawl in the back. But when I'm dealing with a woman, like I can't do that to you because you're a woman, you know. So sometimes I think women have to take a step back and make sure that they're being a woman too. Because I do think if you are too masculine with the guy, then that kind of puts him in a position where, what can he do, right? Like
walk away.
He's gonna take his
But
frustrations
that's
out on
hard to
something
always
else.
walk away.
You have to walk away from it.
He's gonna take out his frustrations on something else. He's gonna break something, or he's gonna change. He's gonna be passive aggressive. That's gonna
or
happen.
unhappy.
Unhappy, yeah.
Because you might walk away and then you come back and then you're still dealing with that person, you know. But you know, and that can go both sides, you know. A lot of things can go either way, right? But having that balance is so important, and I do think patience is a big part of a relationship. It's a virtue, yeah. Mm-hmm. And also learning from mistakes. But something I want to say, because I just seen this recently. There was this topic, and this will be the last topic, and then I'll close this out. So it was just, he was saying that a lot of times when we're in relationships, we give our best to like our everyday, like our friends and our work, and we're so nice and friendly and charismatic to those people. And then by the time we get home, we're like depleted and we don't really have anything to give our spouse, and we give them like the shittiest part of ourselves. Do you feel like that happens subconsciously, and that that's something that we need to actively work on in relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You go back home and you look for support, but you forget that you also have to give support, and it goes both ways.
Yeah.
And at the end of it all, they're your partner. They're supposed to be your other half, right? So why would you not reciprocate the interest either, or the support in that aspect? Yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite thing about living in Miami?
Las mujeres.
¿Estás seguro que no es el tráfico? Que la ciudad no tiene límite en el tiempo. Es la ciudad, tiene día y tiene noche. Y tú puedes ser aquí quien tú quieras.
Nunca duerme.
Ya, la ciudad que no duerme tampoco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys enjoyed the story time and some of the content you've seen here, check out their podcast, Single in Miami podcast. I will add the link in the description below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like this video, like, subscribe, comment down below. And until next time, peace.